I'm Indy Neidell.
And I'm Burns.
And this is the Baseball History Time Machine.
All the baseball history you'll ever actually need, and then some.
That might be true after a couple of years of this podcast, but it'll take some time to cover everything.
I mean, I trust us.
Yeah, me too.
And what are we going to talk about today? Today,
we're actually going to talk about what I said near the end of last time that we talk about today, and that is Sluggers of the 1940s. But first, I want to make a little shout out to my old college buddy, Pete, who started a non-baseball podcast called Tales from a 70s Kid, which is really good. And the episodes are short, so it's easy to binge and enjoy all of Pete's magic.
Tales of a 70s Kid. I'll check it out.
Tales of a 70s Kid. You can get it, Spotify, whatever, right? No, really. And hi, Pete. Love you, man. I don't know if I really love him, but, it's Pete.
He's a good guy.
I'm not saying his last name because I don't want him, the people that don't like his podcast, I don't want them seeking him out and hunting him down like they do with us.
Of course.
I don't. You know how I get all those threatening phone calls. Well, for a while, I thought it was you.
If you can spell my first name, my second name, and my surname, come find me. By all means, I'll be ready.
I want people to spell my last name so they can join us on Patreon and give us money.
Of course. That's why we didn't use my name.
That's why we didn't use your name.
Doesn't fit.
Okay, and now, ladies and gentlemen, back to Sluggers of the 1940s.
One of our first episodes was Sluggers of the 1930s, right?
That's true. And my point overall in that episode is that despite some prodigious slugging feats.
Two guys had 58 homers and one guy had 191 RBIs.
Yeah, things of that nature, yeah. Despite that, there wasn't really all that much actual slugging going on. And there weren't all that many teams that even hit 100 homers in a season, and there were quite a few who only hit like 50 or 60 homers as a team most years.
And remind us, who was the lowest?
In both the National League and the American League, it happened in 1931. And it was the Reds with 21 team homers that year, and the White Sox with 27.
So crazy to think of a whole team hitting less than 30 homers in a season.
It sure is in our lifetime. But the National League as a whole bottomed out that decade with 460 homers in 1933. Though there was a lot of hitting going on. You see all these averages and lots of runs. And there were some real sluggers, but there was not general overall slugging going on, as we discussed in that episode.
And did that change in the 1940s?
It did, but maybe not in the way you might think.
All right, you're going to have to break it down because I don't follow.
Well, in the National League in the 1930s, for example, each team hit between 0.37 and 0.54, like just over a third and just over a half homers per game, except in the power offense year 1930, which had 0.72.
And in the American League?
They had a bit more slugging. They had guys like, Fox and Gehrig and Greenberg and DiMaggio, ranging between 0.47 homers per game in 1931 and 0.70, which is two-thirds of a homer per game for each team in 1938. But I said the 1940s was really not just one era in terms of hitting and pitching.
Yeah?
Well, it's true. 1940 and 1941 were pretty big homer years like the late 30s. But the war years, the numbers tumbled back to earth. The AL was actually worse, with 3 straight seasons of below 0.4 homers per game, 1943, 44, and 45, way below the 1930s. While the National League was, at that point, still all in the 0.40s, except for 1943. But post-war, sorry about all the fractions, but post-war began a homer trend that in the American League was about the same as the 1930s, but in the National League was higher than at any point in its history. And then in 1950, which is not in the 1940s, so technically I shouldn't cover it, both reached record numbers, 0.89 in the National League, 0.78 in the American League. In the 1950s, they were close to averaging 1 homer per team per game, though the AL was behind the National League. 1955 was the first season in baseball history that the teams of a league averaged 1 home run per game.
Wow.
In raw numbers, 1950 was the first time a league hit over 1,000 homers. That was the National League with 1,100 homers. The American League would first do that in 1956.
And what sort of totals are there today?
They are the highest they've ever been, but you kind of knew that, right?
Yeah.
There are more teams. There were 16 then, and there were 30 now. So even if the rates were similar, there would still be nearly twice as many homers.
Yeah.
But the AL has had 6 years in its history with over 2,900 total homers, and all of them are 2016 or later.
Really? What's about the, the juicy years?
The juicer years? Well, there were plenty of homers, sure. And 1996 and 1999 are in the AL top 10. But remember, people hit for higher averages then, and there were plenty of, throwback to the 30s guys like, I don't know, like Craig Biggio or, Tony Gwynn and stuff, where there was a ton of overall offense, but not necessarily that many homers from everyone. Check this out. 1999 is 10th on the American League list of most homers with 2,635 homers. Number 1 on the list is 2019 with 3,478 homers.
Well, that's like 800 more home runs.
Yep, and it's similar in the National League with 2019 also being the top year at 3,298 home runs. Now, remember, we're talking about no league even had 1,000 till the mid-1950s.
That's insane. Those numbers are staggering. And I mean, like, that's pretty serious swinging for the fences. But let's get back to the 1940s.
Right.
Why was slugging so low during the war years?
Well, for starters, in 1943, they used the Balata ball.
The what a ball?
Balata. Here is a quote. Gotta look this up. Here's a quote about the Balata ball from Spartan Seasons, How Baseball Survived the Second World War. Quote, the baseball used during the 1943 Major League Baseball season when supplies of rubber were rationed during World War II. Balata, a non-strategic, good word, rubber-like gum obtained from the milky juice or latex of a tropical American tree, Manilcara bidentata, in case you wanted to know its Latin name, and most commonly used for golf ball covers, machinery belts, and telephone cable insulation, was used by A.G. Spalding and Brothers as a binder in the manufacture of baseball. Red and black layers of Balata substituted for the traditional layer of rubber surrounding the cork center. The Balata ball used ground cork instead of high-grade cork, and the cover of the ball came from domestic horsehide. Initially, the Balata ball was much less resilient than the traditional baseball. See clunk ball, if you look it up in that book.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you clunk ball. Making it difficult to hit. Later in 1943, Spalding made balls containing rubber cement that remained soft and sticky, and there you have it.
Well, that's a lot of information, but there I have it.
Oh, gosh. Wow, that's right on your toes too, wasn't it?
I had to.
I'm sorry, you guys, that this episode starts off with a lot of numbers and stuff instead of like players and stuff, but we'll get there.
A lot of stats.
And many big sluggers like Ted Williams and Hank Greenberg were also away for several war years. And of course, the guys replacing them could hardly be expected to be Hall of Fame sluggers of their caliber.
I mean, that's true.
But the Balata balls were so dead that 11 of the first 29 games played that year were shutouts. 11 of 29. And after the first week of play, the Yankees had 2 home runs, the Browns had 1, and the rest of the American League had 0. 0 combined.
But that's a dead ball, essentially.
Yeah. Reds president Warren Giles dropped a dozen Balata balls and a dozen leftover regular baseballs from 1942 off the roof of Crosley Field, and he had the bounces measured. The old balls bounced about 13 feet, the Balata ones just under 10. He estimated they bounced about 26% less.
Okay.
Scientists in New York, meanwhile, dissected some Balata balls and did all kinds of scientific experiments, and came up with 25.9 less resilience.
All right, 10 points for Giles for getting basically the same answer with less work. I'm assuming they fixed this problem?
They did soon enough, and the season proceeded as it should.
So tell me about some actual sluggers of the 1940s.
Mr. Gecko, you're a huge inspiration to us all, but who was your muse?
My dear old Nan. She would tell me, always remember to be true to yourself and to use that fast and friendly claim support on the Geico app. I follow her advice to this day.
Get more than just savings. Get more with Geico.
Every school child knows the exploits of DiMaggio and Williams, the 56-game hitting streak, the 406 average.
Every school child?
Male and female.
I grew up in South Africa. The school children there only knew about cricket, rugby, and maybe, if you were lucky, some football.
Okay, well, what cricket thing would every school child know about?
Oh, that's a difficult question.
Or rugby. Pick a thing that every South African school child when you were growing up.
Oh, school child growing up that we won the 1995 World Cup.
That's the first one I watched. I remember that.
Yeah, the first one after readmission into sports after apartheid. Yeah. That was our home World Cup as well.
I came to Europe in 1993, so that was my first one. Okay. That was a great introduction. Okay, I'll tell you what. When this podcast gets big in South Africa, I'll talk all about Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio.
But not today.
No, today, I'm going to get there. It's been nearly 10 minutes. But today, I want to cover some lesser lights from the 1940s, or some that weren't lesser lights, but are more forgotten today.
Who was it last time who was number 2 in the MVP in both 1939 and 1940? I forget. He was a slugger.
He was a slugger, and he's definitely someone I'd like to cover today, so I may as well do it now.
Mm-hmm.
And he is Johnny Mize, or more correctly, Johnny the Big Cat.
The Big
Mize.
Cat, like Galarraga?
Yeah, except exactly half a century earlier, basically.
Okay.
Mize replaced Mel Ott as the premier National League slugger near the end of the 1930s. And he remained that guy until he was away during the war, 43 to 45.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he was awesome. Average power. He could take a walk. Now, he hit as many as 51 homers in a season, but he won the first of 4 homer titles in 1939 with 28.
Just 28 to lead the league.
He also hit 349 to win the batting title. He led the National League with 43 homers and 137 RBIs in 1940, and he led the league in slugging in 38, 39, 40, and 42.
Wow.
Before the war, he actually topped 300 every year of his career. He was a rookie in 1936, with a high of 364. After the war, he was 33 years old in 1946, and he had 3 more stellar seasons before age began to take its toll.
Who did he play for?
Interestingly enough, he broke in with the Cardinals, and he played with them when the Giants won a couple of pennants. And then he went to the Giants and played with them when the Cardinals won pennants, so he never reached the postseason with either of them.
Is he one of them hard luck stories?
Very much not so, right? In 1949, he was sold mid-season to the Yankees, and in a part-time role and as a pinch hitter, his final 5 seasons were a big cog in the Yankee machine that won 5 straight World Series.
Oh, wow,
in fact, while he 49 to 53, they won. Nobody's ever done that.
Yeah,
they won 5 straight World Series.
Yeah.
In fact, while he was with the Yankees, there was a line written by New York sports writer Dan Parker: "Your arm is gone, your legs likewise, but not your eyes, Mize. Not your eyes."
Oh, that's pretty good.
It is, and it's really true. I get like emotional when I see that because it is so true. Johnny Mize, he wrote a book on hitting. Actually, him and Ted Williams both wrote. You can get them on Amazon. Look up Johnny Mize. Ted Williams wrote The Science of Hitting, and Johnny Mize wrote How to Hit. They're both good.
The pragmatic approach.
Yeah,
How to hit.
But these are
science.
These are 2 of the best hitters ever.
Yeah,
you know?
I get it.
The Science of Hitting, I think, is a little more complete. If you want a book to teach you how to basic batting, I'd get Ted Williams' The Science of Hitting.
Maybe I should look that up and come to the cages once I've studied it.
You should.
Actually, that's a good idea because all I have is I've got a cricket background.
But that's what Chris, who plays on Enjuedo with me, who's been injured the last couple of years, he comes from a cricket background. He translated it to baseball, and he got The Science of Hitting. He took my copies of it. He learned a lot of stuff from The Science of Hitting.
Maybe I should.
So he'd come and go, hey, I'm like, I know that. I play baseball.
That's a cool project, actually. It could be some content, actually. Think about it that way. Yeah.
Okay, but I want to talk about a couple things about Mize, and they segue, I tell you, into our next hero.
Ooh, a segue.
Yeah, a segue. Now, Mize had great bat control. And in his big seasons after the war, he struck out fewer times than his homer totals. In 1947, when he hit 51 homers, he struck out 42 times.
Oh, wow.
In 1948, he hit 40 homers and struck out 37 times.
That's kind of insane, and that would never happen nowadays.
Well, it didn't happen then either. No one had ever hit 50-plus homers with fewer strikeouts than homers. Joe DiMaggio did it with 40-plus homers, but the king of that style of feat has to be Tommy Holmes.
I don't think I've heard of him.
He had what I guess you'd call a fluke season in 1945. In an 11-year career, as a good batting average kind of guy, he only topped 10 homers twice. Okay. And one of those times was 1945, when he led the majors with 28 home runs. Okay, that's good for him, right?
Yeah.
You know how many strikeouts he had in 1945? 9.
9? And he led the majors in homers. That's astonishing.
Yeah, 9. He also led the majors in hits with 224, in doubles with 47, and he had a 175 OPS plus. He also hit 352, which is just 3 points off the batting title. And this was the second of 5 straight seasons he was in the league top 10 in hitting.
And only had 9 strikeouts.
In his whole career, 20 was the most strikeouts he ever had in a single season.
Did he win the 1945 MVP?
He did not, actually. He came in second to Cubs first baseman Phil Cavarretta, who won the batting title by 3 points at 355. The Cubs won the pennant, right?
Go Cubs. How many homers did Cavarretta hit?
6.
How many times did he strike out?
34.
I sense perhaps some injustice here.
Well, we weren't there. We can't know what was in the voters' heads, but I feel it too. But hey, we're getting from what I wanted to say, what I wanted to finish with about Johnny Mize.
As is tradition.
This is true. Mize hit 22 homers in 101 games in 1946. But in the Mayor's Trophy game, which was an in-season exhibition game between the Yankees and the Giants, Yankee reliever Joe Page broke Mize's hand with a pitch, so he was out for a while. And then, when he could finally play again, Mize broke his toe.
Aww.
Those 22 homers, though, finished second in the home run race to a Pittsburgh rookie named Ralph Kiner, who hit 23, one more than Mize.
Kiner I've heard of.
Here's the thing. Mize hit 51 homers in 1947 and 40 in 1948, right? Ralph Kiner also hit 51 homers in 1947 and 40 in 1948. They tied for the Major League lead in homers both of those years, and the year before that were only one homer apart. So for a 3-year period, Kiner and Mize were separated by one single homer in one single year.
That's pretty cool, but 23 homers to lead the league his rookie year, and Holmes led the majors the year before with 28. These are very low totals.
Johnny Mize and Hank Greenberg were the only players to top 40 homers in a season in the 6 years 1940 to 1945. They both did that in 1940. Post-war, things got cooking again.
Yeah, but tell me a little bit more about Ralph Kiner.
A lot of people, well, most people today remember him as a broadcaster, which he was for over 50 years, almost all of it for the Mets, until he retired in, I think, 2013 at the age of 90 and passed away the next year at 91. But during his playing career, he was a home run king. In fact, he was the first really unquestioned home run king since Babe Ruth.
Didn't Mel Ott win a lot of home run titles?
He did. He won 6, but he only ever topped 40 homers once.
How was Kiner different?
He topped 50 homers twice. The first National Leaguer to do that. He topped 40 homers 5 years in a row, which only Ruth had ever done at that point.
Okay.
And from his rookie season, starting his rookie season, when he broke in, he led the league in homers 7 straight times.
Wow.
And the last 6 of those, he led the majors.
Has anybody else actually ever done that?
I don't think so. I'm not going to guarantee that because I don't think so. Ruth had 6 titles in a row once, but did have 12 overall in a 14-year period. But Ralph Kiner had those 7 homer titles and no more.
And why not?
Kiner only had a 10-year playing career, retiring because of a back injury after 1955. But in those 10 years, he hit 369 homers. That's like 37 homers per year. And his career homers per at-bat was second all-time only to Ruth then. Hey, you want a couple pieces of Ralph Kiner trivia?
You know I do.
He was a good average hitter in his best years, hitting around 310 or so. But in 1952, he hit 37 homers, but had just a 244 average. Now he played for some terrible Pirates teams. And in 1952, they went 42 wins and 112 losses.
That's an all-time bad team.
It sure is. And after a month or so, he was sent to the Cubs in part of a big multiplayer trade, primarily being sent because of his constant salary disputes with then Pittsburgh general manager Branch Rickey.
That guy was everywhere.
He was, and he had this to say to Kiner. Either we finish last with you, we can finish last without you, or we lost 100 games with you, we can lose 100 games without you, depending which source you believe.
Either way it's true. I mean...
Well, yeah. But Kiner, he was a big star, just not for that long. In fact, he used to go out with Hollywood stars like Elizabeth Taylor and Janet Leigh.
That's pretty fast company.
It is. And now, I'm going to segue from Kiner into another slugger, one who only played 3 full seasons in the 1940s, 1940, 46, and 47.
And who is this one?
Well, I'm going to segue. Kiner hit those league-leading 23 home runs as a rookie. But then an aging slugger came to the Pirates and played his final year there, and he showed Kiner the magic, how to really hit for power. And Kiner responded with over 50 homers and 6 more homer titles in a row. Ask now.
Who was this mysterious aging slugger?
He was none other than the mysterious Hank Greenberg, who was a fearsome power hitter, achieving monumental feats. He hit 58 homers in a season once. He once hit 63 doubles in a season.
Oh, wow.
He topped 150 RBI in 3 seasons with a high of 184, which is third all-time, and one off Lou Gehrig's American League mark of 185. He won 4 homer titles. He won 4 RBI titles. And this is even though he was playing in the same league at the same time as Jimmy Fox, Lou Gehrig, and Joe DiMaggio. And in 1935, he had 101 RBI in the first half of the season. In the first 78 games, he had 101 RBI, over 100 in half a season. And He did not make the All-Star team.
No, but that's crazy though.
Remember, he was a first baseman, as were Lou Gehrig and Jimmy Fox. And both of them, this was 1935, they won the Triple Crowns in 1933 and 1934. So, again, pretty fast company.
Okay, right. Who was that Cleveland Slugger first baseman from the 30s who never had an All-Star, though he hit like 40 homers and he had 160 RBIs?
Hal Trotsky.
That's right.
You remember him from
from
Sluggers in the 1930s?
That's right.
Hal Trotsky, we shouldn't forget Hal Trotsky. No. Greenberg did win the 1935 American League MVP award, though.
Okay.
Thing is, Greenberg joined the Army Air Forces in mid-1941, half a year before Pearl Harbor, when the U.S. actually joined the war. So he only played 19 games that year, and he played in just 78 games in 1945 when he got back. So he missed pretty much 5 seasons in the 40s when he was still in his prime, considering he won the 1940 MVP award, right? He also missed most of 1936 when he re-injured the wrist he first injured during the 1935 World Series. I'm telling you all this, even though he was more properly a slugger of the 30s and the 40s, because although he was active from 1933 through 1947, which is a 15-year span, he only had 7 seasons with more than 500 at-bats, which means that his protege, Ralph Kiner, actually had more at-bats and more plate appearances in just his 10-year career than Hank Greenberg had in his. Greenberg had 41 homers in 1940 and a major league leading 44 in 1946 when he was back. His lone full season back, still with the Tigers, who he played his career with before that one season with the Pirates. So do the math for the intervening years, and though it's a what if, he'd pretty easily get to 500 homers had he been playing and had he been healthy.
He was Jewish, yeah?
That he was.
Was he the first Jewish baseball star?
He was the first Jewish Hall of Famer.
Okay.
And he was the first major Jewish star, but really only of the 20th century, not all of baseball history.
Someone was in the 19th century?
Yep. We are very much going to do an episode on Jewish baseball players and Jewish stars, so I'm not going to go deep into it. But one of the very first big baseball stars, and one of the very first to ever actually get paid to play ball, was Lip Pike, or Lipman Pike. Mm-hmm. He began playing top-level ball in the mid-1860s with the Athletic Club of Philadelphia, and apparently in 1866 hit 5 homers in a game against the Philadelphia Alerts.
So he'll feature prominently in Sluggers of the 1860s.
Yes, and when we do Sluggers of the 1860s, that'd be fun. We get to cover Jim Crichton. I could do that. I could do that episode.
We could totally do that.
I think that's gonna be really eye-opening for a lot of people when we do Sluggers of the 1860s.
I mean, to give you an idea how the game has evolved and how the eras changed.
We're gonna get. Trust me, in just a second we're gonna get to this. Because if I did Sluggers of the 1870s, he would feature prominently in that because when the National Association began playing in 1871, he won the first 3 homer titles with 4, 7, and 4 home runs for the season. And he was among the association's slugging leaders every year of its existence.
So he went from 5 in a game in 1866 to leading the league with 4 in all of 1871.
Crazy times. The game was changing. It was evolving year to year back then. But professionalism, like Pike's, was new, and it was frowned upon by a lot of people. Okay, here's a quote about that from the Biographical History of Baseball. Quote, Pike was one of the first players to be acknowledged as a professional. While others had certainly been paid before 1866, Pike, along with 2 teammates on the ostensibly amateur Philadelphia Athletics, was ordered to appear before the Judiciary Committee of the governing National Association of Baseball Players to answer charges that he had accepted $20 for his services.
What?
Although the matter was dropped when nobody bothered to show up for the hearing, the incident exposed for the first time the widespread practice of paying supposedly amateur players.
I imagine paid pros were largely better than their unpaid amateur counterparts. Right?
You are likely correct. However, there's also this from When Johnny Came Sliding Home, which is about baseball immediately after the Civil War, 1865 to 1870. The 2 salaried players who had been imported from New York, Dockney and Pike, were jettisoned in favor of Philadelphians. This experiment had never worked the way management had hoped. Whenever the play of the Athletics had been considered suspicious, the 2 foreigners had been the most suspected. It seemed that, as non-natives, their loyalty was perpetually in question. With the exception of Reach, All of the 1867 regulars were local boys.
Where was Pike from?
Brooklyn. But hey, I'll talk more about him when we do an episode on Jewish ballplayers, including when he was briefly blacklisted by the National League.
Wow, you're really going to leave us hanging like that?
I really am going to leave you hanging like that. I have more sluggers of the 1940s to get back to. Well, I mentioned Mel Ott, so I may as well talk about him.
How active was he still in the 1940s?
More than Greenberg or Kiner, because he did play from 1940 to 1947 when he retired, which is 8 seasons inclusive, though he only played 35 games total the last 2 years. In the 1930s, Ott's last homer title was in 1938 with 36 homers, and he only topped 30 once more in the 10 following seasons when he led the National League with 30 in 1942.
So he didn't go away to war?
No. And here's the thing about Ott. He played 22 seasons, all with the Giants, but he broke in when he was 17. He hit his first in the major leagues. That's young major leaguer.
Yeah, that's very
He
young.
hit it. Well, actually, it was. He took this really big high step in his batting when he would swing. And John McGraw, Giants manager, said, "I'm not going to let some damn fool minor league manager mess with that guy's batting stance because that's a natural hitter." So he brought him up to the Giants at the age of 17.
Yeah, but that's the clever thing to do. That's how you manage talent.
Well,
right?
yeah. He hit his first homer at 18, and he hit 42 homers at the age of 20, which, remember, that was the National League record before 1929 that year, and one less than the record that was set that same year. The homer race, which we talked about in the Higher Average Than Cobb Part 2 episode, decided the last day, I think. And though he hit 511 career homers, which set the National League record, only 168 of them were after the age of 30.
Okay.
Really.
Interesting.
343 of them before that, which is more than Greenberg hit in his career. So Ott really slowed down as the years rolled on.
Still an all-time great slugger and an all-time great giant to
For
boot.
sure. Hey, okay, I'll tell you what. How about I throw in a Cub for you?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Swish Nicholson, who played every single year, 1940 to 1949, all of them for the Cubs until traded to the Phillies for the last year of the decade. And he played at least 100 games every year of the decade except 1949.
Swish Nicholson. I've never heard of this guy, and I'm a huge Cubs fan.
Nicholson led the National League in homers and RBI in both 1943 and 1944, finishing third and then second in the MVP voting. Now, he sometimes gets unfairly tagged as a wartime slugger who wasn't as good before or after the war. And while that is true of some people, it is not true of Swish Nicholson.
Okay.
He hit 25 and 26 homers in 1940-41. When he led the league in 43 and 44, it was with 29 and 33. He hit 26 in 1947. He was pretty consistently around those numbers.
Dare I ask why he was called Swish?
Well, his name was Bill, and he was only called Swish outside of Chicago. To Cubs fans, he was Big Bill, right? And it wasn't because he struck out super often, though he did once lead the league, but with 83 strikeouts, which is fewer than like most of MLB in 2025.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, he was in the league top 5 or 6 times.
Okay.
I don't know exactly. So you can see why Swish stuck.
Yeah.
But it was a name he got given in Brooklyn, from what his Sabre bio tells me. When he'd come to bat, he'd wave his bat over the plate a few times, and the crowd would chant, "Swish, swish, swish."
Okay, that's cool.
Swish, yeah.
That's
so he led the Cubs in homers for 8 straight seasons, a mark broken by Sammy Sosa. But when he led the league in homers and RBI, those 2 straight seasons, only Babe Ruth and Jimmy Fox had ever done that before Nicholson.
This guy was the real deal.
He was, and he was chosen the most popular Cub of the decade. He was a 4-time All-Star as well. And he was once intentionally walked with the bases loaded, which is pretty much the ultimate tribute a hitter can get from the opposing team.
Of course.
And the next guy after him to get that honor was, I believe, Barry Bonds. So it was a long time.
That's quite a bit of time that has poured into the ocean, yeah.
His last few years, though, he struggled with diabetes, and he was mostly a pinch hitter for the Phillies. But he is on the Cubs' all 20th century team, which is another honor.
Well, let's have a toast to Swish Nichols.
Sure, why not? Swish Nicholson.
Cheers.
Okay.
Hey, you haven't covered any of the huge names like Musial and Williams.
I've covered some of the huge names, but no, I have not covered Musial and Williams. And we'll have to have a part 2 next time because there are a bunch of guys I want to cover that I haven't got to. Okay, let's do one more today, all right?
Sure.
When we were talking last time about doing this episode today, Sluggers of the 1940s, the impetus was Vern Stevens.
Yes.
So Vern Stevens I shall end with today.
All right, let's do it.
Among players who primarily played shortstop, there were 5 major leaguers who hit more than 50 homers in the decade of the 1940s. Right?
Yeah.
Joe Cronin hit 54 before retiring in 1945. The other four played the whole decade. The only one who topped 100 was Vern Stevens with 177 homers.
Which doesn't sound much for a decade to 25 years, right?
Well, remember, back in Sluggers in the 1930s, I said Glenn Wright set the shortstop record with 22 homers in 1930.
Yeah, that's true.
Cronin broke it in 1940 with 24. Stevens equaled that in 1944 when he led the AL with 24 homers. Topped it with 29 homers in 1948, and then demolished it with 39 homers in 1949. That was the shortstop record.
Yeah.
Ernie Banks would soon top that with 540 homer seasons in the 1950s, but still. Stevens' 159 RBI in 1949 is still the single-season record for shortstops, and only Miguel Tejada has come close with 150 in 2004. In fact, other than that, the only shortstop who has come within 15 was Vern Stevens himself when he had 144 in 1950. And it was 50 years before any player at any position topped those 159 RBI in 1949. Manny Ramirez, 165. Well, exactly 50 years later in 1999.
This is a shortstop. Why has nobody heard of this guy?
I agree.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
It's not fair.
Yeah. Who did he play for?
He played with the Browns from 41 to 47.
Okay.
Which explains, I guess, a little why he might not have got so much national attention. Although he did play in their lone World Series, in which he had 0 homers and 0 RBI.
Ooh.
He came up in 1941 and played 3 games. So 1942 was his rookie year.
Okay.
So his 1940s decade was 8 years long. And in 6 years with the Browns, was an All-Star 3 times. And 4 times finished in the MVP top 10 and twice in the top 4. So the sports writers knew who he was, right? Yeah. Then he went to the Red Sox and they had Ted Williams. And if Ted Williams is on your team, then you are not the star.
I mean, that makes sense.
That's just the way it is.
That's just the rules.
If Ted Williams is on your team, you're not the star.
No, Babe Ruth's on your team, you're not the star either.
Yeah, I mean, Lou Gehrig was always second place until Ruth was gone.
Yeah.
So imagine being Lou Gehrig and you're not the star. Okay, but the Red Sox also had Dom DiMaggio, Joe's brother, Bobby Dorr, guys like that. So maybe he gets long in the historical shuffle, but his pop-up swing, he hit high fly ball.
Yeah.
His pop-up swing was perfect for the Green Monster, the high but shallow left field wall in Fenway Park in Boston. And he was an all-star all 4 of his first years with the Red Sox. And he batted cleanup behind Ted Williams, the all-time on-base percentage leader, hence the RBI totals. If I was batting behind the all-time on-base percentage leader, I might have a few RBI.
You might have a few RBIs.
I'm actually going to quote the beginning of Stevens' Sabre bio page written by Mark Armour. Quote, "The 1940s witnessed a special group of Major League shortstops, including the likes of Lou Boudreau, Phil Rizzuto, Marty Marion, Pee Wee Reese, and Johnny Pesky. During his own career, Vern Jr. Stevens was considered to be as good or better than any of his illustrious peers. Yet, within a few years after his retirement, he had been largely forgotten, remembered mostly as a plodding, one-dimensional slugger. He was much more than that. History ought to remember him."
We could make it like a little side quest in our own lives to get people to remember Vern Jr. Stevens.
Sure.
And why was he called Junior?
Well, he actually was Vernon Stevens Jr. His father was also Vernon. Yeah. Not some baseball nickname that he did something stupid and got the nickname Junior. He's actually Junior.
Oh, could have been either or. Well.
More trivia. As a rookie, he finished 4th in the MVP race. He even got 1 first-place vote. Now, that's the year Joe Gordon won, and Ted Williams, who won the Triple Crown, finished 2nd. But in 3rd place was another rookie shortstop, Boston's Johnny Pesky. Pesky would move to 3rd base later in the decade when the Red Sox got Stevens.
How old was Stevens in 1942?
He was a 21-year-old rookie.
21, just when the U.S. got into war. How come he didn't go?
He actually failed his Army physical. He had a recurring knee injury, so, he was going to go, but they wouldn't take him. In fact, that's what slowed his career after 1950. He hurt his knee again. He was only 30, but he played just 4 more years and hit only 23 homers total. And it was not just his career that ended prematurely. He died of a heart attack in 1968. When he was only 48 years old.
Oh, what a bummer. That's a pretty unhappy ending for my new favorite historical star.
And with his ending, Burns, we shall now have our own.
But this episode is more about sluggers, and the 1930s episode was more about slugging. I like the mix. Looking forward to part 2 of the 1940s.
Me too. Yeah, okay, everyone. Check us out on Facebook, or especially Instagram. The Time Machine was too long there, but the Time Machine name was too long there, sorry. But you can look up my name, Indy Neidell, Neidell, and you'll find Indy Neidell's Baseball Podcast. And that's not really fair to Burns here, but such is life.
Such is life. And patreon.com, where Indy Neidell Baseball History Time Machine, our full name, and you can join us there and be part of this. We can use some financial help, and any help we can get, really.
Well, we use all the financial help we can get.
Yeah.
I don't see. I'm not going to beat around the bush around that. No. But we will be back with part 2 of Sluggers of the 1940s next time. So, goodbye from me, Indy Neidell.
And me, Burns.
And the Baseball History Time Machine. He's the most tip-top, top cat.
That's what I had in my head.
I know. Okay, I'm going to hit stop now.
All right, nice.